Are you terrified of natural birth? Or maybe your natural birth didn't go the way you planned? Maybe you're trying to conceive and this is your first baby and you're looking for all of the positive birth stories so that you can wrap your head around this idea of giving birth. Maybe you're already pregnant and panicking now because you know that that baby has to come out. Or maybe you've already had a traumatic birth and you don't know if you want to go through that again, but you want more babies. Maybe you're even pregnant right now and you didn't plan to get pregnant, but now you're freaking out because you're like, how can I go through this again? If this is you, or if there's anything in there that resonates, then let me just tell you that you don't have to stay afraid. In fact, if you follow what I'm going to be teaching inside of this challenge, you're going to walk away feeling more confident to plan and get the birth you want. Hi, my name is Carly Bonderud, and this is the Reset Your Mindset for Empowered Birth mini challenge, which you can watch completely free on the YouTube channel. All you have to do is follow along with these trainings, do the homework, and you're going to have a more confident outlook on natural birth. You probably might even change your mind. If you're thinking, I don't know if I want to have a natural birth, maybe I should get the epidural. Or maybe you're a C-section mom and you're still trying to debate whether to have a VBAC. Or maybe you're a first-time mom and you're still kind of thinking you want to have a home birth, you want to stay away from the hospital, but then you've heard the stories, right? I'm going to address all of this inside the Reset Your Mindset for Empowered Birth Challenge. And I'm also going to tell you about other things that you might want to take advantage of within the Empowered Birth community. So strap in, because this is about to be your deep dive education. Moms who have followed me before have gone on from thinking that they were going to have a traumatic hospital birth to planning a beautiful, empowered home birth. There's been moms who had multiple C-sections who went on to have their beautiful home births after 2 or more cesareans. There have been moms who have had unassisted natural births in the hospital. They're more confident to advocate for themselves, and they're no longer afraid of birth. Instead, they're excited to give birth. And that's the attitude that we really need to have when it comes to giving birth, because that initiates us into our motherhood journey. And if you want to know more about that, you can always check out my book, Your Empowered Birth. It is available on Amazon, and it's also available inside the Empowered Birth book playlist, because one thing about Empowered Birth is that information is free. You only pay for access to me. So let's get started. So this is your Reset Your Mindset for Empowered Birth Challenge. And this is day 1, why you're still afraid to give birth naturally. And this is even true if you've read some books and taken classes. So what we're going to be covering in this entire series is that I'm going to help you deconstruct your fears and attitudes and beliefs that are secretly sabotaging you from planning your true natural birth experience. I'm going to cover the 4 biggest influences that lead to you falling into the natural birth traps. And I'm going to tell you the real reason that you're still stuck in fear, even if you've read all the birth books or taken all the birth classes, and I'm going to show you how to get out of it. If you haven't been with me for a while, then I'm also going to tell you my story. You can skip ahead if you want to, but the story itself is powerful, and it's going to show you the transformation that you're going to experience as you go through this Reset Your Mindset training. In fact, a lot of the steps that I'm going to be teaching you are the same things I use to get past my fear so that I could go on to plan my home birth in the first place. So if you are new to me and you don't know who I am, my name is Carly Bonderud, and I'm a childbirth educator and a women's empowerment coach. This ties in because everything that I'm going to be teaching you about birth, how you come to birth, is how you come to the other aspects of your life as an empowered mom, or even if you're planning to create a business, or if you're planning to either deepen your relationship with your partner or start over. I am currently a single mom as well as of recording this training, and I've been moving through this journey, taking the same skills that I learned in my birth, the same skills I'm going to be teaching you to get out of your fear, to have the most empowered life possible, and to continue to go for my dreams. In fact, I'm here today partly because of my empowered births and also because of the system that I have implemented in all of my trainings. You can again learn more by going to empoweringmomsbirth.com, or you can check out my book, Your Empowered Birth. So, as I said, I used to be terrified of childbirth, and then I decided to plan a home birth with my first baby. But I didn't get my home birth with my first baby because I was stuck in fear, which is what I'm going to help you get out of. And I did achieve it with my second. I have over 10 years of experience helping women get past their fear so they can plan and get their dream natural birth and prove that their bodies work. I'm a mother of 2 high energy kids that keep me very busy, and I'm the author of Your Empowered Birth, and I write romance novels just for fun. I also love to take off to the beach in the summer as soon as the warm weather hits, and I work virtually. This is also why information is free. You only pay for access to me because I do not take on every single person that comes to me and wants to be a client. And this is the full self-study path so that you can basically get this information even if you can't get access to me. Now, the reason I'm so committed to the empowered birth journey is because of my empowered birth journey and what I've been able to help my clients achieve. This is why this training is existing, and this is why I have more information on my website and I put all of my resources out there. Because you see, prior to 2012, I was terrified to get pregnant, and I was a very obnoxious 20-something college kid. And I was swearing up and down that I'd rather be knocked out and have a C-section and a tummy tuck. I was convinced that birth was painful, scary, and only crazy hippies birthed at home. But something happened in 2012 when I was getting into my late 20s. I really did want to be a mom. And I had a partner at the time, and he wanted to have one child by the time he was 30. He was 2 years older than me. I knew that I had to get past this fear because I really did want a baby. I actually wanted 2 kids, but I was so afraid at this point. And I knew that birth was just one day out of my life, but I was just terrified of getting pregnant. But, you know, the universe kind of gives you what you need. And in 2012, in the summer, I found out that I was pregnant with my son, not intentionally, and my fear suddenly was realized. All of the things that I was associating with birth being painful and traumatic, though, I recognized was really the hospital birth model, plus the pain of if I had a home birth, what's that going to be like? So I was afraid of the pain of home birth, but I also didn't want any of the interventions that were coming with the hospital birth. And what I did is I basically planned to have my home birth. You can read more about my journey inside of Your Empowered Birth in Chapter 3, A Harsh Lesson. I made several mistakes. There's about 7 of them that I list. I go through my empowered birth journey, but ultimately what happened is I got tricked out of my home birth. I didn't know my rights or the way that the system and our birth culture undermines confidence in first-time moms. And even though I refused to give in to fear and birthed 100% naturally against the odds, I still ended up with a little bit of birth trauma from that because of the fact that I hadn't been supported in that birth, and to later find out that I could have had him at home. So I was very disempowered in that moment. But because I was so disempowered and because I was so angry, I then decided that I was going to go and learn all of the things that I had overlooked before. And what I had discovered was that I had been gaslit by the system and our birth culture into doubting my own intuition, and I got good and mad about it. So my son was born in the spring of 2013, and I had recognized that there was a lot of birth trauma in our community. And I was actually hanging out with a bunch of moms that had had C-sections, and they were also angry and upset because they had been planning natural births, and they got essentially tricked out of it. And due to my psychology background, where I had been a psych major for a number of years, I'd studied social psychology in college. My dad is actually a retired psych nurse. So I basically grew up with psychology from the time I was 11 years old. I started to see how this was being manipulated in our system. And I got good and mad about it, like I said. So that is actually a picture of me way back in 2014. I'm standing outside in a local park. I have a sign that says question your induction, as you can see. There are other signs there as well. A lot of people that came up thought that it was basically a pro-life, or maybe it was pro-choice. They couldn't tell. And we're like, no, this is about birth. This is about birth autonomy. This is about moms who actually want to have their babies, but they're being traumatized. And I'm not okay with that. And I came to that conclusion partly because Dawn Thompson at the time had been running Improving Birth. So I found the Improving Birth community and I decided I wanted to go to a rally. This was my first plan. And what happened is there were no rallies in my area. So I was like, if nobody else is talking about this, who's going to do it? And I took it upon myself thinking this is too important. I'm going to get past my fear of public speaking and putting myself out there, because I know it doesn't look like it, but I am a huge introvert. I used to be afraid of getting on camera. This again ties into my empowered birth journey, as you're going to see, and what could be possible for you if you have an empowered birth. But the thing that you need to understand is I hosted my first Improving Birth rally because nobody else was warning these moms what they were walking into, and I was done. And by reclaiming this, I also reclaimed my birth. And I had determination for a better experience, and it had lit a fire in me. And that shy wallflower was just no more. And then by that point, I was also planning for baby number 2 while uncovering more secrets in maternity care, and how even with lots of birth education, we still get talked out of our births as first-time moms who know nothing, and even as seasoned moms, as you're going to find out. And again, my whole story is inside Your Empowered Birth within chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 3 is a harsh lesson where it basically goes into my first-time mom journey, and chapter 4, Reclaiming Birth, is my beautiful empowered birth with my daughter, Michaela. So now we're coming into 2015, and I have been a birth advocate for just over a year and a half. I still don't recognize the power that I really hold in my community. I don't think that anybody's really watching at this point. I'm just putting out the information and I'm sharing information. And I'd only done one Improving Birth rally before I actually got pregnant. And then over the summer in 2015, I got pregnant with my second baby. And this is when I applied my empowered birth method to the entire pregnancy and birth planning. And I will teach you more about the empowered birth method within these trainings. You can also go onto my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide, and that will give you an overview. There's also resources that you can access on my website. So even as you're going through this training, just keep in mind that this is just the tip of the iceberg of what you can learn in the empowered birth community. And if you like, share, and subscribe to this channel, you'll also get deep dive masterclasses every single week where you're going to learn more about the birth advocacy skills, birth planning, and basically apply the empowered birth method. Because as I said, I hold nothing back. I'm committed to you having an empowered birth, because when you have an empowered birth, well, you'll see. Okay, so I established myself within the birth community at this point as a birth advocate, and I joined a local birth network. They actually reached out to me, and I was also navigating my own pregnancy. Now, I didn't do a single blood test during this pregnancy. I had decided that that was not something that I really wanted to do. I had already got the information that I felt I really needed. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing that because it's going to cause me inconveniences. And I also have a phobia of needles. And I just basically stood in my power. I planned a home birth. And this time I shut down all the fear mongering and the gaslighting, and even stood up to a chauvinist OB who had basically tried to talk me out of my home birth the first time by canceling an unnecessary ultrasound. You see, I'd had a back spasm back in 2015, And I was basically like, I've already had this before. I know what it is. I just need a shot of morphine so I can sleep. And then I'll see my chiropractor in the morning and will get me sorted out. But he didn't believe it. And he said I had a kidney blockage. Again, you can read the whole story inside of chapter 4 of Your Empowered Birth. But I was like, I don't have that. And it just felt so empowering to be able to keep saying no and to get what I wanted, advocate for myself strongly, even though he made me wait 3 hours with my toddler and my partner in the triage, waiting for this one shot of morphine that I knew I just needed to be able to go home. I don't know why he was doing that, but sometimes you just have to hold your ground. And I held mine, and then I canceled that ultrasound, and it was basically reclaiming my power. And then in the springtime of 2016 is when I had my incredibly healing, empowering home birth with my daughter that showed me the many ways that our bodies don't follow the textbook. And it awakened my intuition to everything else that wasn't working in my life. And again, you can read that whole story. I also share it inside little bits and pieces of my videos. I talk about that birth story because it really was a moment of reclaiming my power. So this is what happens after you have an empowered birth and you reclaim your power over your own body and your intuition. So in 2018, I decided to create Empowering Moms as a mom blog and continue to advocate and support moms wanting home births, VBAC, and to avoid inductions or to heal from traumatic births. As I'd helped my friend, Christine, who you can also read about inside my book, Your Empowered Birth, she had basically been part of my rally coordination team. And she had decided that she didn't want to get pregnant again because of her traumatic C-section. Spoiler alert, she ended up surprise pregnant around the same time I was pregnant with my daughter, and we both ended up having empowered birth babies at home. Now, hers was an unplanned home birth. Mine was planned. And hers was an unplanned home birth after cesarean. And this is part of the early iterations of when I realized that my empowered birth method, which I'd really just been teaching her to get her out of her fear and be okay with the idea of having another baby and to follow her birth advocacy skills that she had learned as a rally coordinator, that basically helped her get her power back as well. And I wanted to do more. In 2019, though, a lot of stuff happened. I attempted to launch my business around this time. I was trying to establish myself within the birth community. I was attending a conference of Birth Without Fear. And at the same time as that conference, my life fell apart. And again, you can read more about my story, but the basic idea is that my relationship with my partner had been an abusive, traumatic, and manipulative bond, a trauma bond, if you will. And he had been basically emotionally and verbally abusing me. And I hadn't seen that until after I had my empowered birth with my daughter. And I was strongly advocating, and he kept shutting me down. And I'm like, but I'm advocating for myself. I'm not fighting with you. What's going on? And I had to come to terms with that. I knew I had to leave him. And at the same time, I'd been a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have an income. He made so much more than me. I was scared, and I held on. I really held on to that relationship. And then what happened is he ended up having an affair. He got another woman pregnant that summer. The same time that I was attending this Birth Without Fear conference is when he went out and stepped out on me. And in September, when I was again trying to leave him and he had moved out, I basically just was trying to get this business off the ground, but I had no marketing skills. And I did the best I could at the time. And then what happened after that is that when I had just started to establish Empowering Moms, I had a house fire and everything burned, all of it. My 6 years of my business concept gone. Everything that was on my computer that hadn't been uploaded to the cloud, gone. All of the posters, all of the written materials that I'd printed out, They were gone. And I looked at my house burning and I'm like, I can rebuild because I've already done the hard thing of giving birth naturally at home and reclaiming my power. I was able to look at that incredible crisis that would have broken anyone. I mean, having your marriage fall apart and having to explain to your children that they're going to have a new sibling, but it's not going to be from your body because your partner has stepped out, and trying to reconcile with that. And at the same time, just not having the income, and then your house burns down. I knew I had to basically rely on him for a little bit longer than I wanted to. And I also was still trauma bonded. And I thought that maybe he would change now that he had seen this, that he'd seen the error of his ways. But in 2020, I noticed that it just wasn't going to work out at all. He was still trying to control things. Of course, the world had shut down. I noticed that a lot of moms were getting talked out of home birth, or home birth was being banned. They were being told they couldn't have their partners. And I knew this was going to re traumatize moms. So I had gotten in touch with another birth doula group, and we were meeting online. And in that time in 2020, I also wrote the first draft of Your Empowered Birth. I created the Empowered Birth community on Facebook, and I started teaching weekly live streams in the fall of 2020. Then I went on a journey of learning marketing skills. I got the training that I needed. I invested in my education. And in 2021, I started the Empowered Birth workshops, and I started to create Your Empowered Birth Academy as just a coaching program. I coached a few clients in that time, led them to have their beautiful empowered births. And I also reclaimed my power at that time when I was teaching my workshops in the first iterations of them and coaching my clients. I finally left my partner and I became a single mom. And I did it in such a powerful way. I healed the decades of trauma that I had gone through. And I was able to basically stand in my power and continue to help moms. And in 2022, I wrote the final draft of Your Empowered Birth. It was a PDF. I gave it out to my clients. And in 2023, I published it on Amazon. And I've now created my social media channels, the YouTube channel, my website. Everything is a resource for empowered birth. So not only did I have an empowered birth, but I rebirthed myself. Because when you have an empowered birth, you become an empowered mom for life, and no one can take your power from you ever again. So now you probably are wondering, how did I go from being terrified of birth to teaching it and turning it into this beautiful transformative experience that then leads to mothers being able to stand in their full power and even go after their own dreams, in addition to raising their kids and having a more conscious relationship with their partner, having a more conscious relationship as they're raising their families, and to basically do things that seem impossible? Well, I'm going to tell that to you. Secret number one is that birth is not supposed to be scary and traumatic. It is your initiation into motherhood, and it's meant to empower you, not to disempower you. And secret number two is that the scary stories about birth come from several perpetuated fear traps that are reinforced in our birth culture. Secret number three is that the common practices, though, in the medical model of birth are mostly what's responsible for the fear, the pain, and the trauma in birth. So typically home birthers and free birthers do not have these same experiences. Now, there's usually two different types of home birthers and free birthers. There's the ones like me who, as a first-time mom, they just look at that system, the medical system, and they're like, I don't want that kind of birth. I want something better. It has to be a better experience than this. There has to be a secret. And then they go and they get that education. And they're maybe checking out Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, and they're checking out orgasmic birth, and they're reading about pain-free birth techniques, and they're planning a home birth. But then they end up getting undermined or tricked or it doesn't pan out. A lot of first-time moms want to have a home birth and are talked out of it. Now, I was very stubborn. However, at the same time, the medical system did undermine my confidence. My partner wasn't confident. He was afraid. And then there was also my family and friends and everybody else telling me that I didn't know what to expect with the pain. So maybe I should just go and have my baby in the hospital just in case. And it was with that undermining of confidence that I ended up giving up. The other kind of moms that are home birthers and free birthers are the ones that have been traumatized in the hospital. They thought that they could have a natural birth in the hospital, and they're like, I don't want to go through that again. Maybe they were induced before. Maybe it was just not all it was cracked up to be, and they had a natural birth or what they thought was natural, and they're like, I want to just stay home this time. Or maybe they've even had a traumatic C-section and they're like, I don't want to go anywhere near the hospital because I have been so traumatized and they're just going to give me another C-section again. So when you recognize that a lot of free birth moms are coming to it because they feel like they're backed into a corner and they can't get the support they want in the medical system, and a lot of home birthers are the same way. And then there's the ones of us who are consciously choosing it, but we still have those underlying fears. Then that leads to secret number 4. It becomes impossible to advocate for yourself against the medical system unless you're also able to question it. And the reason I was able to advocate so strongly was because I never trusted the medical system in the first place. I had always been the kind of person who wouldn't go to the doctor unless I absolutely had to. I know my own body. I know what it needs. And that was a point of contention with my former partner at the time, because he was like, oh, you're sick, you go to the doctor. And I'm like, no, all I need is rest. All I need is to have some time to myself. I need these foods to get me better. I don't need to go to the doctor, because all they're going to do is prescribe pills that I don't want to take or suggest a surgery that I don't want to have. And I don't actually feel I need any of that. If I feel that I need that intervention, then I'll call it in. But I'm not going to blindly trust the system. And this is important. This is part of what I'm going to be teaching you, is that you don't have to be afraid to go into the medical system if you need the help. Part of the empowered birth method is we aim for a true natural birth, and then we pull back only as much as needed. And if you do want to learn more about that, you can go to my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide, and that will give you the overview of true natural birth versus natural birth in the medical system. And secret number 5, of course, is that when you reset your mindset, which we're going to be doing in this challenge, you can then free yourself from the fear traps that keep you stuck. And secret number 6 is that most decisions that you don't really want to make, like agreeing to doing the hospital birth when your heart calls you home, or agreeing to that induction because you don't want to lose your midwife, it's because you're afraid of what will happen if you do what you actually want to do. And this is, again, what we're going to be addressing. Because secret number 7 is that other people can and will project their own fears onto you. It's your job to either tune in or tune out. And again, this is what the empowered birth method allows you to do. Secret number 8 is that most fears are also based on lack of information, cultural biases, and the illusion of danger and punishment. And this is why the Reset Your Mindset Challenge is so important. Because if you're just filtering through typical birth education, there's still a lens that you are looking at this stuff with. And if you don't recognize that that lens is actually coloring your experience and leading to you falling into those fear traps, it's going to be harder for you to advocate for yourself. So I'm going to ask you the question, what would be possible for you if you could have a natural birth free of fear, anxiety, or overwhelm? And it could be painless, or at least not as painful as what people say that it's going to be. And you come out the other side and you're like, I want to do it again. where you're going to be making all of the decisions of what you will and won't allow. You don't feel backed into a corner. You don't feel like you need to fight, beg, or compromise in your birth plans. And you feel like you're actually supported, where you can feel completely confident to say no to anything that you don't want, because that is what's possible with the empowered birth method. That is what my clients were able to achieve with their own pregnancy and birth experiences, even when things didn't go completely to plan. That is what the moms who watched the original Reset Your Mindset training that I did in 2020 were able to achieve. And that is what moms have been able to do with the content that I produce within your Empowered Birth Workshop, your Empowered Birth Academy, and everything that I put out on my website. Because again, information is free. You only pay for access to me. I'm going to help you get past your fear so that this is actually a possibility for you, that you could have a natural birth. You wouldn't be doubting yourself and wondering whether or not to take the epidural. You won't be doubting whether or not you can have a VBAC. You won't be doubting whether you can have a home birth, whether you can pull it off, whether you can say no to your care provider, whether you can strongly advocate for yourself, whether you can convince your partner to support you in your birth choices. All of this is powerful with the empowered birth method. But of course, the first thing you need to do is have that right mindset. So now let's get started on your empowered birth journey. And of course, if you're just watching this video and you're thinking that was a wonderful training, I'm just going to also share with you that the key to empowered birth and the key to anything is implementation. Don't just passively watch this, actively participate. Ask your own questions to yourself as you're watching. Start thinking about what messages you're receiving from society that are getting debunked by the videos in this challenge. And you're going to also be spending the next few days observing stories and overall birth culture that you've been immersed in. Every time something scares you about birth, write it down in your notebook. You cannot challenge your fears that you are not aware of. And so the first step is to become aware of the fear so that it no longer controls you. And again, if you want to go deeper with this, as you're going through this challenge, I do encourage you to check out your Empowered Birth. Now, you have two options. You can get it off of Amazon and support the Empowered Birth movement by getting it on Kindle or getting a paperback version. I personally love to have a copy in my collection so that I can flip through it and I can go to the pages that I want. I can mark up the pages as needed. I can flip to things, something tangible in my hands. I really love it. And that is the same book behind me. I do sometimes give out copies to my high-level coaching clients as well. They're usually signed copies. If you see me around out and about, like sometimes when I'm out traveling, I have copies of my book and I just give them out for free. So information is free. You only pay for access to me. However, if you do want to support my work, then I encourage you to just go get it off of Amazon, get a copy of your Empowered Birth, because that creates the ripple effect. The proceeds will go back into the Empowered Birth movement and also a little bit to put food on the table for my kids, but mostly because I am committed to you having an empowered birth. Now, again, if you're not exactly sure if you want to purchase a copy yet, or maybe money is tight for you, and I totally get that. I mean, sometimes that's between getting a thing of groceries or getting a book, and you need to choose what's right for you and right for your family. Then that is why I also have the Empowered Birth Book playlist on my YouTube channel, so you can listen to the book and go through it that way. I also talk in that video a bit more about what I plan to do with the Empowered Birth movement. I recorded this video way back in 2024 in the springtime, and I launched that around the time of my son's 11th birthday. So this time around, we're doing the Reset Your Mindset Challenge. And as I said, I'm going to be dropping a video every single week. So for the next several days, I want you to basically immerse yourself in this training. And if you're watching this later on in the future, you can binge watch the videos if you really want to and go through the training faster. But ultimately, you need to do the work. for this to actually take root inside of your mindset and unlearn all of those stories about birth that are keeping you secretly afraid from planning and getting your true natural birth experience, because natural birth in the medical system is perpetuated on this idea of fear. And even in our birth culture, we have this idea that you have to do something on the outside. I'm going to show you that you have everything you need to have an empowered birth. And you can have that experience whether you work with me directly or not, whether you buy any of my programs or purchase my book. Information is free. You only pay for access to me. So thank you so much for watching. Have a happy, empowered birth journey. Remember to do that work. Start paying attention to the messages that you're receiving out in the world through social media, through you're watching a TV show and birth comes up. Maybe somebody's sharing a horror story. Maybe you see something in the mom groups. Maybe you're reading something in a birth book. Maybe it's even as simple as you're reading a chapter of a romance novel. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey actually has this, where they mentioned a C-section that Anna had had at the end. And it was just basically like, why is this in here? And it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. And you're going to see that as you go through this Reset Your Mindset challenge. And I'm going to basically have you incubated against that fear for the future. So I'm really, really excited for you to go through this training. If you have any questions, you can always put them inside the comments. However, I don't read them every single day. I kind of go back and forth. The best way to reach out to me is hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com, or you can just go to my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com, and go to the contact information, contact me that way. And as you're going through this Reset Mindset Challenge, if you find value in it, share it with other moms. I deliberately didn't put this behind a paywall, and I deliberately made this so you don't even have to subscribe to my email newsletter. I have something else that you can do with that. It's a deeper dive training, but this particular training, this challenge that I have for you, I wanted to make sure that you could just share it. Just share it. Share the videos, okay? So in exchange for this free education that you're going to be receiving, if you can pay it forward, that is an energetic exchange that's going to create a ripple effect so that more moms know about empowered birth. So again, thank you so much. And I will see you in the next part of the challenge, where we're going to dive deep into your very early learning of birth education and what it has perpetuated for you and where those fear traps are coming from. So stay tuned. And thank you so much. Have a happy, empowered birth journey. And I will see you soon. Namaste.